state of being. So we could say then, most people's entire state of being when they start their day is in the familiar past. Well, if you live in the familiar past, then it makes sense you're going to create the predictable future. So what happens for most people is they get stuck in their biology. So think about this. Your body is your unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you can create by thought alone. So if you're living by the same emotion every single day and those emotions are influencing your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, you're thinking in the past. Your lens of the future is going to be colored by the past, so you can't see possibilities. So most people like to wait for crisis or disease or diagnosis before they wake up enough to see. Well, the challenge is that biology tends to be redundant. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, and those thoughts begin to fire certain circuits in your brain, the nerve cells that fire together wire together, so all of a sudden you start getting hardwired, and those are the thoughts that you can think the easiest. At the same time, those thoughts produce chemicals called emotions, and the next thing you know, your body gets accustomed to living by the same emotions, and it could be guilt, it could be unhappiness, it could be pain, but at least it's familiar to you, at least you can predict it. So some people would rather cling to the familiar than take a chance in possibilities. So for most people then, they say, well, I don't really see how my thoughts have anything to do with my destiny. Well, that's because 95% of those thoughts are subconscious programs, right? So you're not even conscious that you think those thoughts. So the first step to change is starting to think about what you've been thinking about and change it. And then when you begin to observe those thoughts, you're no longer the program, you're the consciousness observing the program.
Just simply by being an observer of your thoughts.
Right. So most people, though, when you do that, when you decide to really take a look, it's like lighting a match in a dark place. So you feel uncomfortable. So it's easier to turn on your TV, it's easier to play with your cell phone, to distract yourself from those feelings. Well, when you understand that change really requires becoming uncomfortable to a certain degree, and that's normal, that you're leaving the known and you're stepping into the unknown, then it begs the question, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Because your attention on those thoughts begins to reorganize circuitry, remold the brain.
So, I love this, by the way. How do you flip that to your advantage? So meditation is really means to become familiar with, correct? So we're going to talk a little bit about meditation as we go forward here in a second. But if it is true that your body is your unconscious mind, which I didn't know that, and it is true that it does not know the difference between a real event or an imagined event, can't you really use that to your advantage, though?
Of course. So, so let's talk about that. Because this is because you do this really well. Because most people are waiting for their life to change, so they can feel gratitude, to feel abundance, to feel whole. You know, that's the old model of cause and effect. You know, so if you're living with emptiness, you're living with lack, you're living with pain, most people have been conditioned that something out there has to take away this emptiness or feeling inside of them. But if you believe that you're creating your life and you're living by lack, well, lack isn't going to create abundance, right? So then it makes sense then that you don't really actually create wealth, you generate wealth, you generate abundance. So the moment you start teaching your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest, well, your body is the unconscious mind, believes it's living in that future in the present moment. Now, it's a scientific fact that it's the environment that signals the gene, okay? The end product from an experience in the environment is an emotion. So when you begin to embrace an elevated emotion, you're beginning to signal the gene ahead of the environment. What's the importance of that? Well, genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and the function of your body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. So by you creating an elevated emotion and teaching your body what that future will feel like before it's made manifest, your body's starting to live in that future reality in the present moment. Now here's the key. If you were able to become familiar with gratitude, become familiar with wholeness, become familiar with abundance, to become familiar with freedom, and you're able to generate those chemicals every single day, more than likely you would be walking around feeling like your future has already happened, and you would no longer be looking for it to happen. You would already feel like it has happened. Now, what is the importance of that? Well, you're literally becoming somebody else. So you're leaving your lack, you're leaving your guilt, you're leaving your emptiness behind.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. So you talk about, I want to stay in here for a minute because I know people right now are going, oh my gosh. And I'm doing that right now too. So now we get into stuff that just benefits me. One of my favorite things you say is that, and it's a general thing, but I want to move into how you become this. So you say often that in order to change your personal reality, you must change your personality. But I think also that people maybe aren't aware of how that personality was formed. And we've started to go down that road, but I want to keep going for a minute.
Sure.
And so you talk often about how a mood over time can end up turning into a personality of sorts. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, let's talk about it in two ways, okay? So your personality, literally, Ed, is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is your personality, and your personality is intimately connected to your personal reality, your life. So then if you want to change your life, your personal reality, you got to change your personality. And here we go again. You got to start becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts. You got to start noticing how you act, how you speak. You got to pay attention to how you're feeling. Some people would live in guilt their whole entire life and don't even know it's guilt because at least it feels like them. So then when you start doing that, you begin to objectify your subjective self. So then when you begin to make small changes, back to thought, a new thought should lead to a new choice. A new choice should lead to a new behavior. A new behavior should create a new experience, and a new experience should create a new emotion.
Yes.
And that new emotion is teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. Now your body is embodying the truth, right? So then the new emotion should inspire new thoughts, and that's called evolution. So how do we get stuck? It's really simple. The stronger the emotion you feel from some event in your life, be it a betrayal or a trauma or whatever, the more altered you feel inside of you, the more you pay attention to the cause outside of you. So the brain takes a snapshot. It freezes an image and embosses that pattern neurologically in the brain, and that's called a memory. So we create long-term memories from strong emotional events, okay?
So is that true? I just want to understand. Maybe the larger the event in terms of its emotion to you, the stronger of a hold it has over you?
Yeah, well, the more it's embossed in your biology. So certain people have a strong experience in their life, and it catches all of the brain's attention. So now they think neurologically within the circuits of the past experience, and they feel chemically within the boundaries of those emotions. And so how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. Now here's the problem, that if you don't know how to mediate or control your emotional reaction to that event, and you keep that refractory period of chemicals going on for extended periods of time, so that the event produces a chemical change, and the body needs to return back to homeostasis or balance. But if it can't, then the elongation of that emotional reaction for weeks, say, for days or weeks, is called a mood. So you say, Ed, what's wrong with you? I'm in a mood. Why are you in a mood? Well, this thing happened to me 5 days ago, and I'm having one long emotional reaction. So then what you do is you keep telling the story about it, keep firing and wiring the same circuits, and you keep conditioning the body into the past. So then you wake up in the morning, you look for the emotion. So then now, all of a sudden, you keep it lingering for weeks or months. That's called the temperament. Well, why is he so angry? I don't know. Let's ask him. Why are you so angry? Well, this thing happened to me 8 months ago. I'm having one long emotional reaction. I'm memorizing my emotions. You keep it going on for years on end. That's called a personality trait. So then a person then is memorizing themselves by living in the past. And so then you say to them, well, tell me the story. Now, the latest research on memory says that 50% of what we talk about in our past isn't even the truth. So we make stuff up about the past. In other words, people are reliving a life that they didn't even have just to reaffirm that they can't change, right? So then what's the significance of this? Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Period. So then the stronger the emotion that you have to some problem or condition or person in your life, the more you're paying attention to them. So they captured your attention. So you're giving your power away to that person, right? Because they're capturing your attention. So then there's an energetic connection to every person, everything in your past, present reality has your energy connected to it. So now, this is the significance. When a person really decides to be defined by a vision of the future instead of the memory of the past, the hardest part about it is all of a sudden becoming conscious and not making the same unconscious choice. So then, if you lower the volume to your frustration, to your hatred, to your anger, if you truly knew how to do that, If you lowered the volume to that emotion, you would take your attention off that person, which means you would begin to break those energetic bonds, and now you're taking your power back.
Yes.
You're calling energy back to you, and we've measured this, and all of a sudden it builds this bigger electromagnetic field around the person's body. That's energy to heal. That's energy to create a new future with, right? And then if you didn't want to lower the volume to the emotion, then just take your attention off the person. And every time you take your attention off the person, if you became conscious of that, you wouldn't feel the emotion. Now the body, though, has been addicted to that emotion because you're using that person to reaffirm your addiction to hatred or frustration. And if that person died, you'd find another one. So then here you go now. So now you're in a position now where you begin to lower the volume to that emotion, and the body's going, wait a second, you've been doing this for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden you're just going to stop hating? And the body says, well, I've been conditioned this way, and conditioning is based on the past. So when the body feels the lack of that emotion, just like a drug addict, it says, hey, you're off schedule here. So now the body starts influencing the mind to think about experiences that are embossed in the brain that are based on that emotion. So the emotion now is causing you to think in the past. If we teach a person then how to trade that frustration or that hatred for an elevated emotion, and they'll say, yeah, but you know, it was my ex's fault, or I got betrayed by my partner in business. Yeah, we know that. Okay, so let's take your partner in business or take your ex. Let's duct tape him, put him in a cannon, and shoot him to the moon. Now what are you going to do? Sooner or later, you got to reckon with yourself and change, right? So then teach a person then how to trade that emotion for an elevated emotion. Now,
trade the emotion for an elevated emotion.
Right. So you're going to give that up, and you're going to practice feeling gratitude, as an example.
Yes.
And the person says, well, I can't feel gratitude. And I say, absolutely you can, because you don't practice feeling it. You practice spending most of your time feeling hatred and frustration. So now it's going to take a little time to cause that heart of you to bloom, or your heart of yours to bloom. Once they're able to feel even the smallest measure of gratitude, where they start feeling appreciation, thankfulness, gratitude, it's emotional signature. When you get something, when you're receiving something, when something has happened to you, or when something is happening to you, you say thank you because you're receiving something. So the emotional signature of gratitude means the event has already happened, or it's happening to you. So the moment you open your heart and you feel gratitude, well, that emotion then is telling the body that the experience has already occurred, and the thought then can make it into the body because it's consistent with the thought. So now you're beginning to program the autonomic nervous system into a very specific destiny. You got to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, independent of the conditions in your outer environment, independent of your body's cravings of those emotions and habituations, and independent from time. And if you can, get ready, because something weird or unusual, some synchronicity, some coincidence, some opportunity is going to land in your lap. And you didn't have to go and get it.
Yes.
It came to you. Now you're the vortex of creation. So if you say to me, well, I was feeling gratitude, but then there was traffic, or my coworker sent me a nasty email, then I would say, oh my God, you mean you're allowing your environment, your outer environment, to control how you feel and think? You're back to the unconscious program that you're the victim to your life.
You got it.
But when you start producing those outcomes in your life, you're going to pay attention to what you did inside of you, and you're going to believe more that you're the creator of your life and less of the victim of your life.
That is so unbelievable. The way that I've never heard anybody ever say it like that, because I've watched people who's, this person's caused this insecurity in their life. And even when they remove the person, what they'll do is, okay, now I'm going to feel gratitude, what you just said, but their body is still addicted to that emotion, and they go seek other references to get them that emotion again. So the first thing you said that I love, that I've not heard before, is acknowledge when that addiction rears its head again, just by acknowledging it. The second thing that really nobody talks about is, it's wonderful to meditate and to get into that space, but then you must get up and be active towards that goal. That's what most people don't ever talk about.
We're changing our brain and body to live in that future present reality, so that you feel connected to a future instead of the past. And when you're connected to the past, you're looking for it. And if you're looking for it, you're separate from it. If you're being it, then there's a complete change in energy, and nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. After 8,500 brain scans, I can tell you that you and I are at our absolute best when we get beyond ourselves. That is the elegant moment where we're free enough to create without any encumbrances.
So this has been measured too. So there's these different energy centers in the body. Is it true that if you're holding on to these other emotions, I just want a basic answer for this for the group too. If you're holding on to these negative emotions and you're not moving towards this more empowering emotion, what happens to these energy centers in the body? Can you describe that to some extent?
The majority of our thoughts and feelings are connected to our sexuality, to our victimization, our guilt, our suffering, our shame, our unworthiness, our self-doubt, or our importance, our control, our fear, our anger, our frustration, our hatred, our judgment. Those are the first three hormonal centers in the body, and those first three centers have everything to do with survival. And those centers are energy consumers. Orgasm, digestion, stress is a lot of energy that we're drawing from our very vital life force, a resource of light and information, and we're turning it into chemistry, and we're literally robbing the body's energy, right? So then living like that for the short term is okay, because the body can move back to homeostasis, it can restore itself, but when we're overdoing that consistently, then there's no energy for growth and repair, because you're living constantly in survival. So again, you can eat all the right food, you can do all the right things, but if you're living in anxiety and fear and you're viewing your world from the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, because that's what you do in survival, there's no energy for growth and repair. There's no energy for healing. So the majority of our thoughts are signaling certain circuits in the brain that signal another part of the brain, the limbic brain, to make what's called a neuropeptide. Neuropeptides are chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. So now you're taking thought and you're storing it as energy in these energy centers. And if you're living in survival, why would you open your heart? I mean, it's just not a time to open your heart. I mean, if you're getting chased by T-Rex, it's not a time to meditate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to connect. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to sit down and go within. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And so,
is that why we're this way? I've never asked you this before. Is this some? I don't think you believe this, but I just want to understand. Is this some sort of genetic disposition that's been passed down to us since we've been chased by T-Rex?
I think so. I think survival has been very adaptive. Like, because if you're being chased by T-Rex, you don't run up to T-Rex and say, "Oh, cute little dinosaur, let me pet you." That's not adaptive. The fear is adaptive. You run from the unknown. You run from challenges, right? So if you're living in survival, there's better chances of surviving if you run from the unknown. And by the way, when you're living in survival, the infinite potentials in the quantum field, you'll select the worst case scenario in your mind. And you'll begin to emotionally prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, because you have better chances of surviving.
There you go.
If you prepare for the worst, right?
There you
so
go.
People spend their whole life thinking about the worst thing and emotionally embracing it. Well, you take a thought and emotion, or an image and an emotion, you're branding or conditioning your body into what? Anxiety, into fear. So then you keep doing that over and over again, the body becomes the mind of fear. And whether you think you can control it or not, you're going to have a panic attack. And the panic attack is the body saying, "You've conditioned me this way. Try as you may with your conscious mind to control it." You programmed it subconsciously. Then you start worrying about the next panic attack, and it's that very anticipation that keeps the person on the hamster wheel.
And robs them of all of this energy as well.
They're absolutely. So they don't believe in possibility when they're living in that state, because in survival, it's not a time to create. All the blood flow is going to the hindbrain and away from the forebrain. There's no physiology really for a person to begin to create a new future. So think about it. So then 70% of the time, people in the world are living anticipating the next moment based on their past moment. And so they're laying reality down moment by moment with the next known, the next predictable moment. And so the hormones of stress endorse the senses. Our senses become heightened when we're under stress, and we become materialists. We narrow our focus on the danger. So then you're focusing on matter. You're focusing on the material world. And when you do that, you put all your attention, the arousal of the stress hormones puts all your attention on your body. If you're being chased by T-Rex, you better be paying attention to your body. When people start reaching this moment, my goodness, they're overcoming themselves. And now they're at that perfect place to create. And my definition of creation is when I forget about myself. Wow. That's when you're free. So some people can do it because they've practiced it. Other people can't get beyond the addiction of a certain emotion. That means their body is still their mind.
Yes.
So then if you're sitting in a meditation and your body's throwing the kitchen sink at you and saying, Ed, you're a loser, you're never going to change, this is too hard, why don't you quit? And you're aware that that's your body doing that, and you say to your body, we're going to sit here and we're going to sit in this fire, and I'm going to keep applying the formula, and your brain starts running to all the emails you have to do, and you become aware of that, and you return back to the present moment, and you tell the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. Now your will is getting greater than that program, and there's a liberation of energy, and every time you do that, that's a victory. And you teach people...
Every time you do that, that's a victory. When your mind tells the body, I'm in charge.
When you say to your... When you want to get up and you want to quit, and you go, oh, no, that's my body, bring it back.
Okay.
And now you're taming the animal. The body is the animal, and you're like a dog. You sit, and if you keep doing this, you're climbing on top, and the body finally acquiesces. It finally says, "I'm not going anywhere," and then boom, there's this liberation of energy. What's the side effect? Joy. Person's heart just automatically opens up, and every time they do that, those victories add up. There's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's only overcoming yourself. And when you sit in the fire and you work with that, people say to me, why do you meditate every morning? I say, because if I can overcome myself in the morning, the rest of my day is easy. It's easy.
Not true?
Because that's what it's about. You master yourself, you master your life.
Yes.
And so then all the chatter in your head that you listen to all day long, that is called the default mode network in the brain. Our research shows that shuts off. Not just shuts off during the meditation, it stays shut off for the rest of the day. So the critic in your head that's telling you this will never happen, you don't have enough time, there's no voice there. So you just have a clear flow on where you're going, and you trust yourself more.
Yes.
So then when you start practicing creating that brain and heart coherence, you can believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that it's actually, there's physical evidence in your brain to look like it's already happened. And you can begin to understand, you can select a new potential in the quantum field and every day emotionally embrace that future reality to such a degree that your body begins to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes and new ways to change your body to look like it's already happened. Now think about this. If there's physical evidence by thought alone in your brain and body to look like your wealth or your future has already happened, it's already happened. And you're already it. So it's not about your wealth. It's not about your health. It's not about your freedom. It's who you become. So then as you overcome, you become someone else. And so most people don't understand that that the truth is that every time you overcome yourself a little bit more, the side effect is that you love yourself a little bit more. And so now self-love is no longer about pleasure or having a car. It's something that you're cultivating within you. So then imagine, we have research to show, and this is such a duality, that when you start seeing the brain start synchronizing, getting coherent. The front of the brain and the back of the brain, the two hemispheres coming together, and we can say to scientists that come and study our work, oh, watch this, Ed's going to pop. What do you mean? Just watch. This is going to be good. And all of a sudden you see this brain going into this kind of psychic union. The heart blows wide open. You see coherence going on. And you'll look around at that person, and there's tears running down their face. Imagine feeling so whole that it's impossible to want. I mean, how can you want when you're whole? Because you feel like you already have it. Now, when you reach that point, that's when the magic happens, because now you are worthy to receive. And the universe only gives us what we think we're worthy of receiving.
Share this with them, please.
Yeah, I think, for me, I'm curious and I'm a pragmatist. If you tell me something, all I want to know is how I'm going to use it in my life. And I'm not into dinner conversation because nobody changes from that. I'm a doer and I want to be around doers. And
this is why you and I connect so well, I think.
And obviously, you create a group of people that are passionate about transformation, and they've done some of the work. When we were doing our 4.5-day advanced workshops, right around the end of the event, I was seeing people starting to seeing some really great transformations, and I thought,
this is the pop.
Yeah, it's a pop. Big pops, and we had to send them home. And I was like, oh God, man, if I could just have them for a week. So we created these week-long events where people retreat from their lives. And they remove the constant stimulation in their external environment that reminds them of who they think they are as a personality. They separate themselves from the people they know and the places they go and the things that they do at a certain amount of time in their routine, mundane life. So we'll bridge a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, a little endocrinology, a little epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology. Those are all sciences about possibility. And I now know that if you can give people sound scientific information, and, you know, for me, that's the language.
I know.
And then if they can turn to the person next to them and explain it, you're not going to get off the hook. If you can't explain it, it's not wired in your brain. But if you can build a model and explain it, you're installing the neurological hardware in your brain in preparation for the experience. So the more you understand what you're doing and why, the how gets easier because you can assign meaning to it. So then if I can set up the conditions and the environment and give them the proper instructions and push the envelope a little bit. And people who get their behaviors to match their intentions and their actions equal to their thoughts, they get their mind and body working together, they're going to have a new experience. And the experience then is not only going to enrich the philosophical circuits in their brain, because experience does that, but it's going to produce an emotion. So they're going to start feeling more unlimited. They're going to start feeling more free. Now they're teaching their body chemically to understand what their mind is intellectually understood. So if you've done it once, you should be able to do it again.
You have the recipe, you have the formula.
So if you can repeat it, you will neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. In other words, the body will start to learn how to do it as well as the mind, and you won't have to consciously think about it any longer. So it gets easier, right? So we follow that format. And first couple days is that getting beyond your life, getting beyond your emotions. Everybody's got to do it, but if you just keep applying the formula, keep going, and I keep reminding you and keep building the model, I give them numerous opportunities to connect and numerous opportunities to overcome themselves. Sooner or later, you're just going to figure it out. It doesn't matter. You're just going to figure it out. And when you do, then we start seeing now these incredible transformations and changes. And it's like a 4-minute mile. Because I really think now, Ed, that evidence is the loudest voice. It is the loudest voice. And so we've got all the brain scans, we've got all the heart rate measurements, we got great measurements on immune regulation, how you can strengthen your immune system by thought alone. We have great measurements on that you could actually change your genes in 4 days, lengthen your telomeres, lengthen your life within 60 days, you know, change your neurotransmitters, change the energy around your body, the energy centers of your body, and change all this stuff. And so